Hello, here I am back again with yet another Star Trek review, again from the third season, Elaan of Troyius. So let's go ahead and take a look at this episode. We'll go ahead and hit play. Again, pull this up on Netflix or whatever and come along with me. Episode starting now. Elaan of Troyius is kind of another third season misstep. It has an interesting premise, but it kind of falls short. Here's the basic information on the episode from the encyclopedia. Elaan of Troyius, original series, episode 57, written and directed by John Meredith Lucas. It's actually the first and only time in the original series that the writer and the director were the same person. First aired in 1968, the Enterprise must transport Elaan, the beautiful dolmen of Alos, played by France Newen, to an arranged marriage on the planet Troyius. So basically the idea here is you have two planets in a solar system. They're at war with each other. So they're going to kind of take a Shakespearean idea and they're going to marry two families together from each of the planets. From Elaan, they will take they'll take Elaan from let's see, what was her planet's name? Never quite remember that. Elaan from Elos. She's being taken to Troyius, where she will be married to someone within their royal family, and in theory that would bring peace to the solar system. Now, the Enterprise has been asked to come to the system, get Elaan, and take her to Troyius. You might ask, why is the Enterprise, why is the Federation, why would they even be involved in this? And because it doesn't really appear like either one of these planets have warp capability. So, according to the Prime Directive, probably should have stayed clear of them. But the reason this is important, and it's going to play a major role in this story, is these planets, this solar system, is very close to the Federation Klingon border, and as we'll see later on, it will have things of desire. So what we got here is we got kind of a, well, it kind of looks green-skinned here. I also thought it was blue-skinned. The ambassador from Troyius, whose job it is to teach Elaan how to behave herself. The people of Elos, I guess, seem to be not as civilized. And so the idea here is on the voyage to teach her how to be a proper person. And of course she's very much a spoiled brat. She wants things her way. She makes people kneel, and she thinks she's better than everyone else. It's just really kind of she's not a very pleasant person. And honestly, the actress's acting in this isn't that great. I recently found out that during the filming of this episode, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, and supposedly that had really affected her performance. So we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. I would think that that would be pretty shocking at the time, especially if you were a major supporter of Robert F. Kennedy. This episode has some major problems, though. Obviously, the writer and director, Lucas, thought that it was a great episode, and he was extremely happy with it, but that's not going to be the case with most other people. Third season executive producer Fred Freiberger said that the purpose of this episode was to reach out to women. And this is something that Star Trek has often tried to do over the years with very little success. They thought they were presenting a really strong female character that women could relate to, but sadly they failed miserably. And in fact, it ends up being very offensive to women, and especially apparently very offensive to Asian women. I found this on Memory Alpha. And an author named Daniel Leonard Bernard said this: Elaan of Troyius brings into play stereotypes of the Asian female, the manipulative dragon lady and the submissive female slave. Elaan is both irrational and primitive. She throws temper tantrum, eats with her hands, and drinks from the bottle. Kirk tells her that nobody told you that you're an uncivilized savage, a vicious child in a woman's body, an arrogant monster. Bernardi argues Captain Kirk, the White Knight of Star Trek, articulates his and the Federation's moral superiority and authority over the Asian alien and her people through sexual conquest. Indeed, it is only after the captain physically and sexually dominates her that she respects and eventually falls in love with him. After giving in to Kirk's power, Elaan, like the cunning and manipulative dragon lady of classic Hollywood cinema, returns the favor by capturing his heart. The Asian alien's tears contain a biochemical agent that, when touched by a man, even aliens like Kirk, forces him to fall deeply in love with her. After she manipulates Kirk into desiring her, Elaan becomes submissive, gentle, loyal, even willing to die with him by his side. As the Klingons ruthlessly attack the Enterprise, it is at this point in the narrative that the other stereotypes of Asian females come into play. That of one of submission Asian slave. In the end, Elaan does anything Captain Kirk requests, politely and adoringly, obeying the demands and orders. Her dragon lady tactics were only used so that she could assume a position she truly desired, the submissive mistress of a white knight. This comes from Star Trek in History, Racing Toward a White Future. Perhaps that's somewhat overstated. I don't know. But I think it actually makes a very good point, and this is where Star Trek often struggles. They think they're doing something great that women will appreciate, and they end up doing something incredibly insulting. So what we have going on the ship, Elaan is on the ship. The Troyan ambassador is doing everything that he can to teach her how to be civilized. Again, it's extremely, really insulting. And for him, it's not going very well. He's trying to be polite. She's being very adversarial and aggressive. Captain Kirk comes in the room to see how things are going. She even complains about her quarters, that Lieutenant Uhura was kind enough to actually give up. In other words, she is a terrible person. And she thinks that she runs everything at this point. And Kirk is really kind of condescending to her as she tells him she is unhappy, and she actually throws something at him. Kirk is almost bemused by this.
Hoping you would find it satisfactory.
So she's just going to complain about everything. Captain Kirk at this point is wondering why in the world he has to deal with all this crap.
The Council of Nobles and the Troyius Tribunal jointly agreed that I should instruct.
She is just not really happy about this situation, which, frankly, I can't blame her for being upset. I mean, she is being dragged from her home, taken to another planet. She's being forced to marry someone from another culture. and she thinks that other culture is inferior to hers, and she's just flat not willing to do this. This is the first time in Star Trek, but it won't be the last that we kind of see the specter of arranged marriage. And unfortunately, I think for Star Trek, they seem to strike a point that is perfectly okay. We'll see this again in the Next Generation in a couple of episodes. One in Haven in the god-awful first season of the Next Generation, where we're actually first introduced to Loxana Troi, played terribly often by Majel Barrett. It turns out her daughter Deanna had been betrothed to someone else, and that they were going to be married. Now, this was all something that ends up very strange in that show because, she had actually freely dated Commander Riker before that, which seems strange that she would date all kinds of people when she already had arranged marriage. Then, of course, in the original series, in the second season, you have a muck time where Spock is forced to return to Vulcan for the mating drives, and he was also going to be in an arranged marriage. So this is the second showing of an arranged marriage in the original series. And then you have Haven in the Next Generation. You also have another Next Generation episode, I think it was called The Perfect Mate. Almost the exact same setup as this, but it was the woman was an isomorph who could bond herself to whoever she's going to marry to become the perfect wife and the perfect mate. Again, Star Trek completely missing the point of what it is women are probably looking for. They probably don't like the idea is that women should be all women want to be married and they want to be with their men and do what they say. Star Trek often misses the boat. Of course, I might miss the boat because I've never quite understood women myself, so who knows. Elaine's men just kind of wander around the Enterprise. Scotty here's having trouble with them there in engineering. And there's Elaine in engineering trying to figure out what's going on. Scotty is, of course, not happy that people are in his engineering room. He gets pretty territorial about that.
We're interested in how the ship is using combat. Nothing what drives it.
And just to drive the point home that Elaine is primitive, she asks Scotty how the Enterprise works in combat. I don't know, in some ways, the way the Elations are actually written here, especially through Elaine, I think you see a lot of these traits will be used as they write Klingons later in the Star Trek franchise. Another interesting production note I found is France Nguyen went through pretty much more costume changes than almost anyone else in the history of the show. She's always changing clothes. Apparently that's another thing that women like to do, is they like to change their clothes a lot. Good job, Star Trek.
Lost contact now.
Now, here's where we have the actual problem for the episode. There is something following them. And it's just on the outside of sensor range, but they're pretty certain that it has to be the Klingons since they're so close to Klingon space. And you can kind of see the Klingon ship in the distance. This will actually be one of the first times that they show this particular Klingon ship in the show. Of course, none of that matters with we have the new special effects now, which do look a whole lot better than what they did.
Moved into contact range. She's facing us, precisely matching our sublight speed and on a parallel course.
So they're pacing them. They're on a parallel course. The Klingons are acting very un-Klingon-like. They are actually sitting back and waiting. Normally, the way Klingons would be portrayed is normally they would be aggressive.
Disturbance in the Dolman's quarters, sir. On my way.
And you got another problem with the Dolman. The Dolman is Elaine's title, and she would, I'm sure, want you to use it. There's a problem between the ambassador who's trying to teach her and her. And on Kirk's advice, he told him to be more aggressive, and he ends up getting stabbed for his trouble. And you know, he'll survive, but she stabbed him in the back. He'll survive, but not surprisingly, he won't want anything to actually do with teaching her anymore. He now thinks that this whole marriage thing is a horrible idea, and frankly, I gotta agree with him. I'm pretty sure I've dated girls like Elaine here, and it's a lot of trouble. But again, the whole point of this is this was used in Europe for thousands of years, hundreds of years. The idea is you get peace by intermarrying through royal families.
With Class A security and scrambled, I put it through the decoder. The Federation High Commissioner is on his way to Troyius to attend the royal wedding.
And Kirk's got another problem. Not only does he have to make sure this wedding takes place, one of the Federation High Commissioners will be attending it, so he can't screw up. It's very interesting that they have this position of High Commissioner. I don't think they use that term in any of the other series. The Ambassador Petrie just let us in on yet another plot point, that the women of Elos, including Elaine, have some sort of biochemical thing in their tears that make men fall in love with them. So we'll see if that comes into play. Hint, yeah, it will. I'm hoping that by the time you watch this commentary with me, you probably have actually watched the episode. I try not to give away too many things as we go along. That is some ugly chicken. Again, here's that point that author I quoted earlier was making. Here she is. She has terrible table manners. She's grabbing the food, eating with her hands. It's all to reinforce the idea that she and her culture are primitive. I mentioned that Fred Freeberger, the producer for this season, said that this was an attempt to appeal to women, and he does freely admit that it failed miserably. But I don't think he really tried to figure out why it failed so miserably. And so that in and of itself, I think, is a problem. So here she is. She's eating with her mouth full. She's grabbing the Sarian brandy. She's drinking it straight from the bottle. She is very uncouth. So this is where Captain Kirk decides that he really needs to be her teacher. And so now we have the next part of this episode is Captain Kirk, etiquette instructor. She doesn't think it's funny, and she says, "What can you teach me?" And first thing he's going to do is teach her some table manners.
This is a class. Leave me. Like it or not, you're going to learn what you've been ordered to learn.
And she doesn't like being told what to do, but of course she really does. Not sure what that was. She really does like being told what to do because she's only dominant on the outside. She really is looking for that man to tame her because, you know, this is how you appeal to women. So at first, she is going to, you know, be very antagonistic toward Kirk's teaching here.
If you don't want the obligations that go along with the title, then give it up.
He talks to her about how it's her obligation to do this, and if she doesn't want to do it, she needs to give up her title, which is actually a good point. At least that's actually acknowledging that she has a choice. So she smacks Kirk, and Kirk smacks her back, which is I don't know, that kind of flew in the 60s. I'm not sure that really flies today. Kirk is on his way out, and she throws a dagger at him. And she's just not very happy that she has to do all of this. Oh, that is a beautiful rendition of that Klingon ship. Again, I'm watching the enhanced effects episode, and it is beautiful. So we have one of Elaine's men wearing the orange, I don't know, almost Flash Gordon suit, sneaking into engineering. I tell you, one problem with old Star Trek ships, security was pretty much a joke. You know, when you got people on board who's normally not there, you got to post guards at critical areas. So he's opening up the dilithium crystal chamber. At least I assume that's what that is. And he's messing with it. And now he's putting it back to where it is. So obviously he's done something here that is bad.
What are you doing?
Finally, somebody comes across him, and instead of having a weapon to be able to draw, the Elation man is able to just kill him and finish up the work because he's the only one in engineering, apparently. Scotty, you got to do a better job of making sure people are on duty, man. Again, just a beautiful Klingon ship. And he's still working on the thing. It's not like this sabotage was quick. Basically, he's sabotaging, he's discovered, he kills the guy that discovers him, then he spends probably another 10 minutes sabotaging the thing. Now here's a scene where Kirk is trying to get into the Dolman's quarters so she can teach him. Her guards do not want him to enter because she said he couldn't, so Spock ends up shooting him. I think if you notice, the weapons held by the Elation guards here, you know, it's really brief before Spock shoots them. They look to me to be the same props used in our last episode, The Empath. So Kirk comes in, she immediately pulls a knife, he grabs her hand, pins her to the bed, and takes the knife away. I don't know, this seems to be pretty inappropriate imagery to me, but, you know, it's the 60s, I guess. So now she's going to run into the bathroom because, you know, that's what women do when they are scared and don't want to be bothered. Now Kirk is actually threatening to spank her. Yeah. So Kirk's going to try to teach her courtesy here. She's hiding in the bathroom. Assume it's the bathroom. You don't really see a lot of bathrooms in the Star Trek universe. And now she's going to take a different result. And so she looks sad, and she's like, oh, maybe you can teach me how to let people like me. So here she is. She's actually very manipulative. So here she is crying, wonders why everyone hates her. I can tell you why everyone hates you. You're a jerk. When you act like a jerk, people don't like you. As a lifelong jerk, I can tell you that's the case. Oh, that's an extra effect I think they added there. They actually had a little sparkle in the tears. So Kirk has wiped her tears, which, as we learned from the ambassador guy, Petrie, has that biochemical thingy which will cause Kirk to actually fall in love. And it seems to work, even though in a wink of an eye, Kirk did not succumb to whatever it is that causes him to, that was supposed to make him docile and in love with the Queen Lady. But here he immediately falls in love with Elaan here. What's the reason why Kirk gives in so easily to his passion here? The plot requires it. Plus, in the third season, they really did play into the notion that Kirk was a ladies' man, and you see more of him and ladies getting it on here in the third season than I think you did in the first two, because it becomes a caricature. So here they are making out, they're kissing. Looks like kissing a dead fish. Neither one of them seems to be in it. The guy is still in the engine room sabotaging it. How can someone else not find him? Now, the only reason they know something's going on now is because the guy sent a transmission somewhere.
Oh, Captain, I'm picking up transmission from inside the Enterprise. It's on a tight beam aimed at the Klingon vessel.
And they know that it's being aimed at the Klingon ship.
Can you pinpoint it?
Log here, Captain. I'm triangulating now. It's coming from the engineering section. Security,
And of course, this whole time Kirk is listening to this, you got Elaan behind him, touching him, kissing his neck, you know, because, you know, they're an item now. Ugh. Very, very sickening. So Kirk realizes he needs to go and do his job, thankfully. And he leaves her alone.
Nobody saw him, but that devil sneaked back in here some way.
So finally, everyone's diverged into engineering, and they've actually captured the Saboteur. Again, this is exceedingly sloppy work, guys.
Captain, you must know I will tell you nothing. Our interrogation techniques are more excruciating than you are even capable of.
Yes, we get it. You guys are tough.
Kirk Spock.
Spock here, Captain.
Mr. Spock, it was Crichton transmitting. He refuses to talk. I'll lead you for the Vulcan mind meld.
They also began to use the Vulcan mind meld in really ways that are inappropriate. In theory, Spock would not use the Vulcan mind meld without the permission of the person he was using it on, unless it was an absolute life or death emergency. This would be an invasion of privacy, and frankly, it would have been torture. Well, of course, that decision is taken out of everyone's hands because Crichton commits suicide. He turns a phaser upon himself and he disintegrates. But I don't know. It just seems like that would have been a very inappropriate use of the Vulcan mind meld, especially since they've shown in earlier episodes like Wolf in the Fold and the first Harry Mudd episode that basically the computer is a lie detector and the computer can determine what the truth is. And in Wolf in the Fold, they apparently had a machine that could reconstruct memories from the last few days. Fortunately, they kind of forgotten all that nonsense because that would be just a little bit ludicrous, I think, even for the future.
Would you give me to another man?
My orders. And
Kirk is now telling Elaine that because of his orders, he's going to have to, you know, make sure she goes through the mirror. And she's like, could you do that since you love me so much? And Kirk, you know, Kirk believes in duty and doing what he's told. For as much as Kirk is portrayed as a rebel, he believes in the ideals of the Federation and Starfleet, and for the most part, he will follow orders. Sometimes he might interpret them in a different way, but in a situation like this, he knows that she has to go and fulfill her obligation. Now, we can debate whether or not that obligation is the correct one, and for me, I don't agree with this whole idea of arranged marriages, but I understand where the concept comes from. And of course, what Elaine cares about here is power, so she thinks that Kirk would be a great match because he controls the starship, and she thinks that the two of them together could actually rule the solar system. She kind of thinks small time. Here's Spock and McCoy walking in on him. Spock's got that look on his face. Not again, Captain. You need to control yourself better. McCoy just looks confused. But they seem very disappointed in their captain.
may we please have a word with you?
McCoy angrily asks him to come into the hallway so they could talk about these things. And he slowly walks out. Interesting enough in this episode, as I was reading up on it on Memory Alpha, and Memory Alpha is awesome. It's the Star Trek wiki if you want basic information. Apparently there was a scene in this episode that got cut that was actually is going to be Spock in the rec room, because they built the rec room set and they wanted to use it, playing music. And it was going to be that he had just recently returned from a Vulcan music contest where he had actually lost to his father. But the whole purpose of him playing was that his music would be piped into the Dolman Elan's quarters to calm her down. While it would have been nice to see Spock doing some more music, not really sure that scene would have worked all that well.
On my way.
So it was probably a good cut. So now we got a red alert. The Klingon ship seems to be doing something. And the triumvirate, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, go to the bridge. Yeah, here comes the Klingon ship on looks like they're going to strafe.
They said stand by.
The speed is better than warp 6, Captain.
Apparently they're coming at them at warp 6, which actually,
And of course, the thing is,
I don't know. I'm relative speeds and battles and things I don't know so well. But it seems like since the Enterprise has been pretty much sublight this whole time,
right ahead, warp back to 2.
trying to warp at, maneuvering at them at warp 6 doesn't really make a lot of sense because it seems like you would just keep flying by the Enterprise. But the whole idea here was to force the Enterprise to go to warp, and then the sabotage would cause the ship to actually blow up. So apparently the bodyguard Crichton was definitely on a suicide mission from the beginning, because obviously there was no way that he would be able to survive.
Solution to the bomb, Kirk. Sulu, stand by and make your maneuvers smart. They should be slightly on this part. 100,000 kilometers.
So now the Enterprise has to try to outmaneuver the Klingon ship at impulse. And here comes the Klingon ship.
Crews, stand by to fire on command. 60. Ready. 50. Hold your fire.
And the Klingon ship just goes by.
Without firing.
because they didn't want to fire a shot. They wanted the ship to blow up. There is, after all, the Organian peace treaty, and a Klingon ship blatantly attacking a Federation starship in what is probably Federation space or neutral space would definitely be a violation of that treaty. However, if the Enterprise just happened to blow up, that's mechanical error. That's not the Klingons' fault. So that's what they're going for there. The Klingons could be very cunning and devious in the original series. Ultimately, the Klingons in Star Trek lore will basically parallel the Russians, the Soviets. And I guess you see some of that in the early days. Though to me, they seem to mimic more Asian cultures like China during the original series. Again, that's something that's definitely open for debate, and I would love to hear from you guys on what you think about that. But I think the Klingons kind of represented the Chinese more in the '60s, with maybe the Romulans, though in their only 2 appearances, almost being more like the Soviet Union. Though I suppose you could argue the reverse as well. So Elaine had come to the bridge. Kirk's like, "You can't be here, woman." Actually, it's Spock that finally tells him.
I don't understand why you didn't fight the Klingons.
She's very upset with her man because Kirk didn't fire at the Klingons. Because she doesn't understand Kirk and the Federation's way. So she's very confused, and she's being very seductive again. And she's saying, "Hey, you sure you want me to marry somebody else?" And she's just really, really, really trying to manipulate Captain Kirk here. And it's obvious that, and William Shatner actually gives a pretty good performance here. It's obvious that he's very conflicted.
No chance of repair. It's completely unusable. No chance of restoring warp drive.
And the sabotage is so complete that they can't restore warp drive. So they're pretty much messed over at this point.
I have to go back to the bridge.
And the next time the Klingons come by, peace treaty or not, they're going to try to blow them out of the sky. So they're going to have to figure something out. Meanwhile, McCoy is in his medical lab trying to find a cure for the magic tears that make you fall in love. Yeah, Petrie is totally green there. Yeah, honestly, for all of these years, I really thought that the Troyans were a ripoff of the Andorians. I thought they were blue. But it's pretty obvious that they're green. So here comes Elaine into sick bay because that's where Kirk wants her to be because it's the most protected part of the ship.
That is the captain's responsibility, Ambassador.
Captain, message from the Klingon ship. They are ordering us to stand by for boarding or be destroyed.
Oh, so now the Klingons are making threats. Board or be destroyed.
Got it. What's our energy status?
93% of impulse power, sir. We can still maneuver.
Aye. You can wallow like a garbage cow against a warp-driven starship. Our shields will hold for a few passes, but without the matter-antimatter reactor, we've no chance.
So basically what Scotty's telling them is because they don't have warp power, they're pretty much screwed.
Help could not possibly arrive before the
And of course there are no other Federation ships anywhere near them. Now, of course, that begs the question of does Elaan or Troyius, either one of them, have ships that could come to help? And obviously, since they said that no ships were in range, that really does kind of tell me that these are both actually pre-warp cultures.
That's all you men of other world can speak of. Duty and responsibility.
So here comes another plot point. The ambassador gives Elaine a necklace that she is supposed to wear at her wedding.
Open the healing frequency.
Frequency open.
USS Enterprise on Federation business. Our mission is peaceful, but we're not prepared to accept any interference.
Really good saber rattling from Kirk there. And here's a Klingon we haven't seen before.
Enterprise, prepare to be boarded or destroyed.
And yeah, that was important to get out there. Prepared to be boarded or destroyed.
Strategy wasn't totally effective.
So apparently they don't take Kirk's bluff because they know the extent of the damage.
Got it.
Can you give me partial power on the phaser bank? No, sir. Not a chance. 300,000 kilometers.
And here's Elaine back. She's wearing the necklace and she's wearing a dagger on her arm because, you know, primitive.
I want to die with you.
So she wants to die with her man. Isn't that nice and sweet?
We're not gonna die.
Again, Kirk orders her off the bridge before she can leave. They get hit, and so Kirk's attention is diverted back to the crisis. Elaine is standing on the back of the bridge, which is actually where the plot needs her to be.
Keep our forward shields to him.
Better than Warp 7.
Hard over, Sulu. Bring her around. He's going for a flank.
So the Enterprise is doing its best to maneuver, but Sulu's just, you know, he can only do so much here. This is kind of nice to see kind of Sulu doing his maneuvers and his tactical stuff. So that's always good.
He's paralleling us again. He seems to have broken off the attack. What sort of readings, Mr. Spock?
So there's anomalous readings, and Spock is looking for it with the little whirly thing.
She is the source.
And it has something to do with Elaan of Troyius. Or Elaan of Elos, I should say. She'll be formally Elaan of Troyius when she gets married off.
What kind of jewels are in there?
So it turns out her necklace from Troyius is actually dilithium crystals. And that is the whole reason that the Klingons are even interested in these backwards cultures, is because of the large deposit of dilithium.
Now I see why the Klingons are interested.
So now,
May I have it?
as you can see, Kirk can now take this necklace
You may
and maybe restore warp drive.
You think Scotty could make use of dilithium crystal? No doubt, sir. He's coming in again.
Very, like I said, very convenient plot points. But that's kind of what you need in stories sometimes, so you know you can kind of forgive that. So now all they got to do is survive long enough to get those crystals up and running, and then they could be in a fair fight. And I tell you, the enhanced visual features really does help with
Our readings confirm your power extremely low. Your ship
the battle scenes.
This is your last chance to surrender.
Yeah, they're not going to surrender.
And the force shield just collapsed. Impulse power down to 31%.
And things look very dire for our heroes here.
Lieutenant Uhura, open the hailing frequency. This is Captain James Kirk of the United Spaceship Enterprise. May I request your terms for surrender?
So Kirk is trying to do everything he can to delay this as much as possible. The Klingons, though, are not buying it.
Your estimate?
We're fitting it now, sir. But we'll have to run a few tests to make sure.
Scotty, of course, wants to run tests because he's an engineer.
These are crude crystals. There is no way
And there's really no time for that. So yeah, Kirk and Spock trying to put these crystals into the
Let me
whatchamajiggy.
know when it's in place. This is the Enterprise. guarantee the safety of our passenger, the Dole Man from Elaan?
No conditions. Surrender immediately.
Captain, starting surrender. Roger, Captain. It's in place, sir.
And once again, Kirk, Spock, and Scotty have done the impossible, and it looks like the crystals are ready to go.
Photon torpedoes ready. Warp power to the shield, Captain. Negative. The sensors will pick up our power increase.
So what they're going to do here is something that they actually did in Balance of Terror. They are going to, and they also did it in Journey to Babel, is they're going to seem to be helpless to draw in the Klingons so they can then open fire. This really does show that even though the Federation is about exploration and peace, Captain Kirk is indeed a military commander.
100,000 kilometers. Charlie, stand by the curtain, walk around. Fluctuation. We'll shape the crystals, I was afraid of that.
And uh-oh, we got a fluctuation. Of course, Scotty can't sit down because the dome is in her chair.
Fire at minimum rate.
See, she's just in the way.
You won't steady down. 30.
So here comes the Klingon ship. Again, the CGI is beautiful. They've even changed the way the plasma looks from the plasma cannon.
Transit course 148 Mark 3.
And Enterprise is still getting shot at.
Photon torpedoes, fire. I set.
And now we're going to have a spread of photon torpedoes. And I like that. They actually show more than one photon torpedo being shot. Sometimes in like the Next Generation, Picard would give an order for a spread of photon torpedoes, and you see one photon torpedo.
Secure from general quarters.
So Kirk and crew has won the day. Kirk is
Anyone pursue and finish him off?
going to take Elaine back down to her quarters. She's mad at him because she won't follow and fight the Klingons and destroy them. So she truly does not understand the Federation culture. Again, she is primitive. So here's the ambassador, and here is Elaine and her bodyguards. She is upset that she has to beam down to Troyius to get married.
We were not being done for the ceremony.
Kirk will not beam down for the ceremony. Basically, he's going to send her on her way, even though I suppose technically he must love her because of the magic crying stuff. And as a memento, she gives him a dagger. Which is a very cool dagger.
Nor have I. I have only responsibilities, obligations.
And I guess the coda to the episode for Elaine, we assume that she grew because she now understands that she must go through with this marriage for duty and obligation. Yay, character growth, I guess. Not really, though. So Kirk, is obviously upset to see her go, but he does anyway because that is his mission. So what's left is the tag here at the end. McCoy comes up, says he finally has a cure for the tears, but Spock tells him it's no longer necessary because Captain Kirk found his own cure, and the other cure was another woman, the Starship Enterprise. So, McCoy's upset he went through all this work for apparently nothing. But I would say that it would actually be pretty important to be able to counteract this tier thing, because that's basically mind control, and master criminals could definitely use something like that. So it's good that he did that. So final thoughts on Elaan of Troyius. It's not a good episode. It's definitely within the bad realm. It's watchable. It's even somewhat enjoyable. They, however, do fail in what they're trying to do. This was supposed to appeal to women, and I think they really failed miserably at that. Now, if there happens to be any women who ever watched this, let me know if I'm off base on that, or if Elaan was a character that you could in some way relate to, because I just don't see it. And I like the basic idea of the episode, but its execution just seems to be kind of clunky. Well, that's the end of the episode, so I appreciate you once again listening to me rattle on. Thanks a lot.